The tzaddik, you know his last name? What was his last name? You know his last name? Rabbi Levi Berditchev. When he was living in Berditchev, that's when last names began. And they went to his home, and they wanted to speak to him, but he was in the middle of praying. How does he pray? He was praying in Hebrew and mixed in with Yiddish, because he's praying, from the heart. So he wasn't just using Hebrew words. So which words are you saying in Yiddish? He's saying Avinu Avarachman, our Father, our merciful Father. Tata de Barim Diker, our Father, our merciful Father. So the policemen are like, dude, what's your name? He says, Tata de Barim Diker, our merciful Father. So, dude, what is your name? Der Barim Diker. Okay. Write it down, John. Der Barim Diker. Until today, there's a family that comes from Levi Berditchev, and their last name is Der Barim Diker.
Which was the Barim Diker?
I met someone, yeah.
What does it mean?
The merciful one. Harachaman. The Barim Diker, yeah. So, why mention Levi Berditchev? Levi Berditchev taught us the meaning of this Shabbos. I want to tell you 400 things about the Shabbos. But I don't know if I have time to tell 400 things.
400?
I want to tell you 400 things about the Shabbos.
This is like in the
You could. There's so much to say about the Shabbos. I want to say 400 things. But if we only do 300, we'll also accomplish something. Let's start with from the beginning. Rabbi Levi Berditchev shared the following parable about the meaning of the Shabbos. The Shabbos is called the Shabbos of Vision. And he said that the reason why it's called the Shabbos of Vision is because Hashem shows every Jew the third temple, the Shabbos. And he gave a parable to explain why Hashem shows us this temple. Why we get to see the third Beis HaMikdash. Why do we get to see it? The parable he gave was of a father who bought his son a suit. And the son didn't know how to take care of the suit. He ruined the suit. The suit got ripped up. So he bought him a second suit, which also got ripped up. He bought him a third suit, and the third suit he didn't give it to him, but he showed it to him. And he was hoping that his son will learn how to behave. It should become natural for the son to behave in a good way, and then he'll be able to get the third suit. In a similar way, because of our shortcomings, the first two temples were destroyed. The third temple exists already in heaven, and Hashem shows every single Jew the third temple. That's the parable of Levi Yitzchak. But every year, the Rebbe explained another layer, many layers of this parable. The cause, why do we get to see it this Shabbos? Who exactly gets to see it? What time do we see it? What impact does it have? What are we meant to do with this vision? There's so much that this parable has every year. Just to begin, the Rebbe says that every year we must be that we see more. Because since Mashiach didn't come, and Hashem is showing it to us again, so last year's vision didn't work enough to bring Mashiach. So it must be, if Chas Hashem Mashiach isn't here by Shabbos, that there has to be a new revelation to inspire us to receive the third Beis HaMikdash. So first of all, let's understand the who gave us this teaching. Rabbi Levi Berditchev was known for his defending the Jewish people. He always saw good in everyone, and since he saw the good in everyone, therefore he was able to convey this teaching to prepare us for Mashiach. He saw in all of us how we deserve and we should be ready, and we're able to get there. Who gets to see the Beis HaMikdash? There are some people that actually see the third Beis HaMikdash literally. Some Jews, the Shabbos, they see it literally. They don't need any explanation. They don't explain what they see and how they see it. And although it says every Jew is shown the third Beis HaMikdash, but there are Jews who see this in different ways. Some Jews see this in a very vivid way. The words actually are, it's in an acronym, Lamed Chaf Aleph Vav Aleph, which doesn't just mean to every person, it also means to every man. Chal Echad Ve'achas, every woman and every child sees this third temple. If a Jew ever doesn't hear the Haftorah of the Shabbos, doesn't hear the whole thing, he still sees this. What about Jews who are full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate? Speaking of the Berditchev Rebbe, he saw good in every Jew. So there are some Jews. You heard that before already. There are some Jews. Rabbi Greenwald's father used to say when he was visiting one of his children who was on a mission somewhere where Jews there weren't so many religious Jews. So he says to his son, So are all the Jews in your shul still Berditchev Yidden? Or meaning the only one who could see good of them is Blavitz Berditchev. Anyway, so there are some Jews, the Talmud says, they're full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate. Did they get to see the third temple? The Talmud says the greatest sinner of it, the greatest, the most, even the one who is rebelling the most against God, he also is full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate. Does he see the third temple? Does any Jew, a Jew who is working on Shabbos, a Jew who doesn't know about Shabbos, does he see the third temple? So if the purpose of the revelation is to inspire us, who needs inspiration? Whoever needs inspiration more is shown it more. So therefore, not only is the Jew who is not aware of Shabbos also shown this vision, especially is shown this vision, and is especially relevant to our generation, because we're the ones who are actually going to see the third Beis Hamikdash. Mashiach is going to come in our time, this last generation of the exile, and the generation is going to greet Mashiach. So this is something which is especially relevant to us, and that's why there was a parable given for this. Why was there a parable? The point of the parable is meant to convey to us, it's something that is conveyed to the earthiest parts of ourselves, the lowest parts, the part of ourselves that needs a parable to explain it. You don't explain a deep idea through a parable to someone who's brilliant. But there's a part of us which is not so brilliant, a part of us which is more earthy and simple, and that part of us also, even that part of us, even the lowest generation, the generation right before the coming of Mashiach, also sees this, and we see it through a parable, meaning we see it in a very down-to-earth way. That's why the Shabbos is called vision in Aramaic. Why in Aramaic? It doesn't say Shabbos of Re'iyah. Re'iyah in Hebrew, Chazon is in Aramaic, which means that revelation is in the earthiest and most down-to-earth parts of ourselves. It's something which touches our most earthiest selves. How do we see the temple? So what are we seeing exactly? What about the temple are we seeing? What state is the temple in? The temple that we see on the Shabbos is in the most absolute, greatest glory, the greatest beauty. It's not just a logical thing that we see in our minds. It's a vivid revelation. And it's not something that we have to do something to make it happen. God shows it to us, which means it's far beyond what we could do on our own. And it's not really only relevant to those who could see it with their physical eyes, because again, everyone's neshama sees this Beis Hamikdash. And even if a person says, I don't see anything, the Rebbe Rashab famously once said that just because someone is unaware of something doesn't change the reality of it. The Rebbe Rashab gave an analogy of these people traveling in a wagon. And everyone has a different reason why they're in the wagon. The wagon driver is in the wagon because he wants to get paid. And the people who are in the wagon, they want to get to their destination. And why is the horse traveling? Wants to get the horse is traveling because he thinks when he gets the next inn, that's where the straw is. That's where the hay is. What to eat again. He's traveling to get the hover, to get the straw. So this guy is in this wagon, the Rebbe Rashab, and he says, I don't know this whole thing about angels. Doesn't make any sense. The Rebbe Rashab said to him, just because the horses think about the straw doesn't mean the angels aren't angels. Reality is reality. And the more we believe in this reality, the more we're in touch with it, the more it affects us. So, even though we don't necessarily understand exactly what we see, that's something we could assimilate in our minds, but this is the fact, that we see the third Beis Hamikdash, the Shabbos. What time? So, the vision of the third Beis Hamikdash actually began in history before there was this takana of saying Haftorah. That takana, the rule the sages established after the temple was destroyed, they established at one point in history to read the Haftorah. But the fact that this Shabbos, there was a vision, this Shabbos, that already began even before Haftorahs were instituted. From the very first Shabbos Chazon, after the temple was destroyed, that's when the vision began to be shown to every Jew. And the reason why we're shown this Shabbos is because Shabbos reveals the inner dimension of things. Shabbos is a taste of the future. What's the future? The future is the coming of Mashiach. So since this Shabbos is such close proximity to the ninth of the destruction of the temple, therefore Shabbos, which gives us a taste of the inner meaning of the destruction of the temple, this Shabbos is therefore the time where we see the inner dimension of the destruction of the temple, which is the everlasting happiness of the coming of Mashiach. Seeing the third Beis Hamikdash is more than visiting the first and second Beis Hamikdash. Actually visiting it. Because visiting the first and second Beis Hamikdash didn't have the effect that the Jewish people now are able to greet Mashiach. They didn't get Mashiach. So there must be something that we see this Shabbos that surpasses visiting the first and second temple, because if it didn't, then why didn't they get to see Mashiach? There's something that we're shown this Shabbos that lifts us up far beyond the Jews who actually went physically to the Beis Hamikdash. And what is the impact? So Rabbi Tzubaditchev says that the impact of this is the father. Did you ever show this to Menachem the suit? Do you have another suit for Menachem in the closet somewhere? The impact of this vision is that the child it should be the nature of the child to act in this way. It should be something that's natural to him. So that means that the effect of seeing the coming of Mashiach. I know this guy, he's a hypnotherapist, and he told me that, I think I shared this with you, he told me that the Rabbi told him when you do hypnotherapy, you have to be very careful, because you bring someone under, and you try to speak to their trauma, you might reinforce their trauma. Be very careful about hypnotherapy. It's not a simple thing. Mm-hmm. Anyways, he told me there's two methods of hypnotherapy. This is what he said, take it or leave it. One method of hypnotherapy is he brings you back to the time before the trauma, and then you don't feel the trauma anymore. He's able to heal you by bringing you back to the time you were younger, you had no trauma. That's one method. Another method he has is he brings you to the future. He brings you to the coming of Mashiach. He brings you to a time when suddenly everything makes sense. And when you see that, you're able to come to terms with your trauma, knowing, okay, this is part of my life. This is part of the coming of Mashiach. I had to go through this.
Did it ever come from that?
This was what he told me. He didn't tell me that about any other discussions with the Rebbe.
Mm-hmm. But did you ever told him about truth there?
But not being careful. By being careful. That's what I was told. That's what I told.
Because even within those two ways, there's two ways. One is that the therapist is hypnotizing you, and the other one is that the therapist is helping you hypnotize yourself. Or it's like a type of explainers, a meditative state.
Oh, interesting. I'm not familiar. Sounds cool. So the
Huh? What's that?
It was given to us by Rabbi Hillel Paracha. Rabbi Hillel Paracha shared with us his teaching Levi Tzibidishev.
But it's not in the Kedusha's Levi.
I'm not familiar exactly with Kedusha's Levi. It could be said there also. The Rebbe actually said, why was it given to us Rabbi Hillel Paracha? Why was Hillel Paracha the one? Rabbi Hillel Paracha.
Rabbi Levin, why did the Rebbe go on and on in this?
I mean, every single message over here is something we all need to know. Every single part of this.
The Rebbe went on also by the sweets and the candies. The Rebbe went on and on the stories. He did the diet in every aspect.
I tell you a parable. I shared this parable with Rabbi Cowan yesterday. Imagine there's a family living in this shack on the bottom of a hill, and every time it rains, their house is full of mud, and there's holes. Yeah, and so they try to after the one rainstorm, they come out. They're all drenched. They're all tired, and this poritz, this wealthy man drives by in his fancy horse and wagon, and he hands the father. He sees what's going on. He hands the father a bag of gold. Is buy yourself a nice house, build yourself a nice house, so gesund, enjoy. And he goes away. That's one scenario. Imagine, instead of the guy coming with a bag of gold, imagine if the father says to his wife, Zlata, do you have a pot? I want to get the rain made a little pit in our house. I want to schlep the water out of this little pit that the rain forced into the pit. So he takes the pot and he starts pouring the water out, and as he's pouring the water out, he finds gold in the ground. So those seems to have the same happy ending. They both get these beautiful houses at the end. But there's a very big difference. What happens to both of them when they pass by their original house? The first guy, when he passes by the original house, how does he feel? I want to get away from here. This is the worst place in my life. This place destroyed me. I had such misery here. I want to get the heck away from here. The second guy, the opposite. The second guy says, this is the place that brought me success in life. It was this place. It was that rainstorm. Remember that rainstorm? Wow, it was that rainstorm. This pit is exactly where the treasure came from. So that's the inner meaning of the exile. It's not that Mashiach will come will just be taken to Israel but with clouds coming from heaven. The Chassidus says that it's actually higher, not if Mashiach comes with clouds coming from heaven, but if he comes riding on a donkey. Because the Hebrew word donkey means material. Mashiach will elevate the material, physical world. And it will show us how every part of our life contributed to the third Beis HaMikdash. How every single challenge we had was all part of building that future. So that's why Mashiach comes and says, Hashem will tell us, you are comforted twice. Not just you're going to have something good, but you'll see the meaning of every single thing that happened to you and how that created the future. Yeah. So this is why the Levitz Berditchev compares the third Beis HaMikdash to a garment. A garment is unlike, when you look at a garment...
In the Kedusha Levi, he speaks about palace.
And Rabbi Levitz Berditchev spoke about a garment. And he said, the reason was Hillel Parasha gave it to us.
So why, we have to burn the books or no?
One time, there was some boys by there was a Rav Zalman Jaffe, was by the Rebbe's Suda, and he said to the Rebbe, how come in Tehillim in Psalm 72 it says, a tzaddik will flourish in his days? Why doesn't it sprout in his days? Why doesn't it say a tzaddik sprouts in our days? We have the Rebbe, the tzaddik sprouts in our days. The Rebbe said, don't tell these Shiva students, they'll reprint the Tehillim. So, Rav Levitz Berditchev compares the third temple to a garment. Why to a garment? Because a garment is made according to the measure of the wearer. Unlike a house, which is just encompasses the person in a general way, every part of the garment is measured according to the size of the person wearing the garment. Like this suit, for example, you could tell it's my son's suit. Because it was made, it's a tailor, very, very fine tailored suit. Somehow, Baruch Hashem, he grew out of it, and I grew into it. Anyways, so he had to lose weight to grow, whatever. Anyways, so the idea of the temple being compared to a garment is you look at the temple, Mashiach comes, or the vision of this Shabbos, not just we'll see the Beis HaMikdash in general, the light, revelation of Hashem's light in general. We'll see how each part of the temple, what that part of the temple does. How each part of the temple reveals Hashem in a different way. The altar reveals Hashem's light in one way, and the menorah reveals Hashem's light in a different way. And so that's why I believe it's compared to a garment. It's saying to us that when Hashem reveals Himself to us this Shabbos and shows us the coming of Mashiach, He's going to show us also in ourselves how every part of ourselves, every part of our lives is is a revelation of Hashem. It's Hashem's words. It's Hashem's revelation. So what are we supposed to do? What's the message in serving the service of Hashem?
You still going to explain to me.
Okay.
What the story? The Rebbe didn't tell so many.
Why was the Rebbe so? Every, like you said, every sikha, every year was a different deal.
Because this is a story of our lives. This is about us. This is who we are. Yeah. In other words, you could think that your life, the story of life is in Golos. Why is Hashem showing us the third Beis HaMikdash every single year? Why is it showing that this is it's supposed to have more of an impact than going to visit the first, second temple? So that not just you feel like you want to be devoted to Hashem, but you feel personally connected to Hashem in every part of your life. You feel, just as you see in the third temple, how each part of it, the specific godly light in it, so in your own life, this temple reveals in us how every part of our life, exactly what it's really about. There is a law during the 9 days, even on Shabbos, there are some things which are not done b'tzina. So how can we? So should we be happy this Shabbos? It's supposed to be something which. So the Rebbe says, since the revelation of the third Beis HaMikdash is open and clear and it's public, therefore the joy that this third Beis HaMikdash brings to us, the Rebbe says, is an infinite joy, a joy beyond all limitations. I'll tell you one story of Zalman. I'll bring it home. There was a lady. She used to go to this rabbi's sermon every week. And every time he spoke, I told you the story, right?
No, but I love the jokes, by the way.
Every time...
Every Monday morning I come and the first thing I do is see the jokes.
In the Vishal newsletter. So every time the rabbi spoke, the lady would cry. And one time, he was just saying a sermon full of jokes. The whole thing was jokes. It was just a happy, funny, positive, jokey sermon. And she's crying her eyes out. And he says, Madam, what's wrong? She says, this kind of sermon, that kind of sermon. My son's in the military. What do you want me to do? Ramendel Futafas was once verbringing with the Asher Sasonkin. Mendel, Foot of Rosh Sunken, they were the all-stars. They were the guys who went to the gulags. They were the guys who gave their lives for Torah mitzvahs. They're having to bring together.
Did he like the menorah?
Yeah, he lived in there.
I was there.
You saw Basharat in there?
Years.
Wow.
Years. He was like such a. You were there? You were here?
I never saw him, no.
Oh,
I saw a video of him.
Yeah, of course, I was there.
So Usher,
We were like, every time you said it, we were like this.
he's on back. I think he merited to let them there by the Rebbe because he had sacrificed for letting them there in the gulags. I remember such a story. Wow. I know. So Rabbi Usher, he's bringing with Reb Mendel. And he tells Reb Mendel, Reb Mendel, today's Chassidim are not like yesterday's Chassidim. Yesterday's Chassidim, they knew the whole Tanya by heart. Yesterday's Chassidim would daven for 5 hours. Today, there's nobody. So Reb Mendel said to Reb Usher, Reb Usher, there's a guy, he smells this foul odor. He smells a foul odor. He tells everybody, we have to find out where the odor is coming from. And everyone's like looking, where's the foul odor coming from? They're looking and looking, and finally the guy who is smelling the foul odor realizes that he has something unclean under his nose. So that's what Reb Mendel told Reb Usher. Immediately, Reb Usher said to Reb Mendel, let me tell you a story. There are these two guys who are walking the forest and they're lost. And they see this sign. And they're lost, but the sign is tarnished and old, and it's muddy, and they can't see what the sign's saying. So they have to wash and clean the sign until they can see what the sign is saying. And finally, see what the sign is saying, and Yankel says to Shmuel, this is the sign that's pointing, we have to go this way. So Shmuel says, why do you believe the sign? The sign is dirty and smelly and old. Why do you believe the sign? So the answer is, doesn't matter if the sign at the pointer is dirty and old, it's the sign. The Bleivitzah B'Ditchev is trying to reveal in us our personal connection to Hashem, our personal connection to Mashiach. He's trying to reveal that this is our story, and this is what Chassidus is all about. It's about revealing who we are. I'll tell you one last story. Let you go. A few years ago, Rabbi Elkan, it says his yard site.
Yeah.
I was by a Farbrengen of his in this time of the year. Very unique man, Rabbi El. If you missed it,
he was like.
Chad Bedara, one person in generation like Rabbi El.
Yeah.
So Rabbi El, if he would miss a Farbrengen, he would make a makeup for, because he wasn't healthy or whatever. He would do a makeup Farbrengen. He couldn't not be part of Farbrengen. So Baruch Hashem came to you.
How did the Rebbe know to choose him? Because in the first years, how did the Rebbe know?
How the Rebbe knows things, I don't know. I do know the Rebbe Marash. The Rebbe Marash had a court jester, and he told the Rebbe Marash had a court jester. He had someone in the Rebbe Marash's court who was like a jester. He said, "I'm just like the Rebbe. Whatever I know, the Rebbe knows. Whatever the Rebbe doesn't know, I also don't know. There are some things the Rebbe knows that I don't know. That's the only difference." Anyways, getting back to Rabbi El. So the Rashad, I'm answering you. The Rebbe's brother-in-law told the previous Rebbe that there's a very unique boy in Eretz Yisrael. He has a very unique mind. That's what I heard. That the Rashad told this to the previous Rebbe. But interesting that.
So then the Frierdiker Rebbe told him to come over.
Come over, but when he came,
and when he came, it was already
after previous Rebbe's passing.
He heard it from the guy on the boat, and he said, "I don't want to hear this from you. You want to go to 770." And the Rebbe said, since the previous Rebbe sent, he knew it was going to happen. He told you to come here for sure. You had to stay. Anyway, so Rabbi El, that's an interesting caveat. I was by the Farbrengen, and before I got to the Farbrengen, I was listening to a talk of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said these words. I thought he said these words. He said, you have to have trust in Hashem unless you see a sign from Hashem, a sign in this world, a natural sign or a heavenly sign. Trust in Hashem until you see a sign. What does that mean? How do you know what the sign is? And when are you supposed to stop trusting in Hashem? And I supposed to stop trusting in Hashem. I couldn't figure it out. So I replayed the talk of the Rebbe 4 or 5 times in the car. I posted it on various chats that I'm on of all these know-it-alls. And no one could explain to me. I know what it was. Farbrengen of the 20th of 1985, and I was listening again. I couldn't figure it out. Anyways, I go to Rabbi El's Farbrengen. After Rabbi El's Farbrengen, I come outside, and his brother Zevi is right outside Getzel Shul. Rabbi Furman's brother Zevi, Rabbi Zevi Furman, he's outside, and he's sees me. I'll give you a ride. He gave me a ride. And when I walk in the car, he's playing, of all the things he could be playing, he's playing that line of the Farbrengen. The Farbrengen one. Every Farbrengen is several hours, and there are many, many Farbrengens. And he's playing that line of the Farbrengen. And I'm like, Sevi, what does that mean? It's very simple.
The Rebbe is saying, no matter what kind of signs you see in this world, in nature, or you think you see some kind of heavenly signs, you never should lose your trust in Hashem. That's what the Rebbe is saying. The exact opposite. Imagine if I wouldn't have heard that, I'd be always wondering, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I trust Hashem until, what does that mean? And the Eibishter guides each of us, and every part of our life is meant to bring us closer to the third base of English. And that's what the Shabbat is about. Not revealing to us Mashiach coming on from the sky, revealing to us how our own lives, whatever's going on in our life, is part of the Yulah, part of the coming of Mashiach.
I think that's the whole thing. The base English is going to come down. We're going to bring the base English up.
It's going to reveal in us how every part of our life is about becoming Mashiach. That's what we're going to see.
That's why we're having a siyum, so we can have meat.
It says that this Shabbos, the whole Shabbos is Raiva Deraiva. The whole Shabbos is like usually on Shabbos, the highest part of Shabbos is Shabbos afternoon. But this Shabbos, it says the whole entire Shabbos like Raiva Deraiva. It says it in the Rad of Tashan Dal Mem.
My son has a whole thing about it's a mitzvah.
But the master, does it tell you the Oitzer Bein Mitzvah? Or does it just tell you the Chitzayin is Bein Mitzvah?
The Eitzer has to have the gems.
No.
Bottom line is this. Bottom like this. A Jew might ask it. This is Mamash the last thing. Mamash the last thing I'll tell you. A Jew might ask, the Rebbe says, last line, very important line, last line. A Jew might ask, I don't see the third base of Mikdash, and not only that, I could never possibly bring Mashiach because of all the things I've done wrong in my life. So what are you saying to me? That I'm showing the third base of Mikdash Shabbos, and that it's all about my life, bring Mashiach. I know that I don't see the third base of Mikdash, and I know because of all my mistakes, I can't possibly bring it. So the answer is, Rebbe says, first of all, you have to know absolute faith in Hashem that you do see the third base of Mikdash. That's the reality, and believe in it, and that will open the channel that they'll have more of an impact in your life. But number two, the simple meaning of the Shabbos of vision is a vision of destruction. But the deeper meaning of the Shabbos of vision is a vision of the third base of Mikdash, and they're connected to each other. Because what is the vision of destruction? Why is there destruction? It's just for the third base of Mikdash. And because this year Shabbos goes right into Tisha B'Av, it's easier this year to feel what Tisha B'Av is about. Because Tisha B'Av really starts on Shabbos. Already on Shabbos we skip Tzekascha, laws of living Torah affected on Shabbos. Tisha B'Av begins on Shabbos. So what does this highlight to us, Abzalman? It highlights to us that even when we see in our own life, there's consumers of godliness, we see our own mistakes, we see our own ways that we make mistakes, our own destructions of our own Beis HaMikdash, and therefore we think we have no connection to it. This Shabbos reveals to us that every mistake in our lives is all about the building of the third Beis HaMikdash, just like the vision of Yeshaya. Why is it called Yeshaya? Yeshaya means salvation. Salvation means that there's a problem. The third Beis HaMikdash reveals how every single mistake in our lives is all meant to bring the aliyah, bring the elevation. Imagine you had a private audience with the Rebbe now. Had a private audience. What would the Rebbe tell you? What would the Rebbe tell you? What would the Rebbe tell you? What do you imagine the Rebbe tell you?
Yeah.
We tell you.
Ask me a question. What I learned.
The Rebbe is telling us. The Rebbe is telling us this personally. Reb Zalman.
Yes.
The Rebbe is telling us personally. The Rebbe is telling us personally something. A message for each of us. And when you learn something, the Rebbe says it's a book. Personally, you see in yourself, you see in yourself, you went down. Why did you go down? Why was it destruction? Just like destruction in the third Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash, and the first Beis HaMikdash was just to get to the third. So too in your own life, whenever you see in your life a Yerida, why did Hashem, in order for something to grow, the seed has to disintegrate in the earth. In order for Abzera to learn the Jerusalem Talmud, you have to forget the Babylonian Talmud. In order to get to your connection to Mashiach, to reveal who you are and what you are, this is how it happens.